We will get started, and as others arrive, they can join in. My name's Phil Lemire. I'm the Executive Officer with the Fire Chiefs Association. I'd like to welcome you all to this presentation. On behalf of President Derby and the Board of Directors, we're pleased to have partnered with the Canadian Urban Institute to make this opportunity available to fire departments and local authorities. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Housing Infrastructure Communities Canada for funding the Canadian Urban Institute on this initiative and providing other grant funding opportunities. And as well to our variety of presenters that are here today. I would ask that if you can silent your mics, if you have questions as we're going through, please add them into the chat. There'll be an opportunity either as we go or towards the end to probably have a bit of an open mic conversation as well. And as well, if you can identify in your name title the entity that you are with and representing, that would help to get kind of gauge who's all on the call. So with that, I'm pleased to pass this over to Stu Johnson, who's a climate co-lead with Canadian Urban Institute, for his presentation remarks. Thanks, everyone.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, great.
Yep.
Well, firstly, thanks, Phil, Fire Chiefs Association of BC, for partnering with the Canadian Urban Institute on this initiative. It's really exciting to have the opportunity to work together. And as a BC resident, it's wonderful to be piloting this approach here in British Columbia. So I guess to set the stage, I'm the climate co-lead for this initiative across the entire country and helped to develop the program. But as a volunteer, I'm the chair of the board of the Cortes Island Fire Department. So Eli McKinty here is our fire chief. And so while I was working on this program across the country, helping communities address climate risks in their infrastructure, at the same time, I've been on the board of the fire department and struggling with many of the issues that I'm kind of seeing communities across the country face. We're developing a sprinkler system for our downtown and trying to figure out, well, how best to do that and how far of a radius should we create, and also looking at solar on our buildings and battery backups and so many of the things that communities are facing across the country. We're seeing in a smaller fire department kind of from this perspective. And in a conversation with Eli, he said, well, that's really sounds helpful, but I'd love to be able to learn from peers about what they're doing and how it's working for them, and to have more of a chance to share our experiences as we go through looking at these climate risks. And so that was really kind of the genesis, actually, for thinking about how we work together as a cohort and bringing together different departments to get technical expertise and support looking at these issues, but also to be able to share those kinds of experiences. So really, thanks to our fire chief, and then started talking with Phil and seeing that there's actually interest from other departments to go through a kind of a learning journey together in how we deal with climate risks that are changing so quickly, and how we fire smart our communities, how we fire smart our buildings, how we make them more resilient, and how we think about kind of smaller fire department issues as it relates to climate change. Smaller departments don't have the resources that many of the bigger departments have, with sustainability departments and climate plans and staff looking at these things and thinking about them, and the access to technical support and expertise. So that's really kind of the genesis of this program, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we can learn together and take advantage of the expertise of these experts that are on the roster to provide that kind of support to departments that may not otherwise have it. So thanks for being here, Phil. Thanks for your partnership. And thanks to the HICC, the federal government, for their support for an alternative approach. This is a pilot program that we're launching with this BC cohort. And if it works, this is something we'd be interested in exporting to other provinces and territories across the country and helping departments work together like this. So really want to thank those of you that are on here, HICC and Phil. Thanks for taking a leap of faith with us as we tried this different approach. So, Kira, am I handing it to HICC now? Is that
Yeah,
okay? Great.
handing it to Glenn.
Okay, so Glenn Milner is our partner with the HICC and has been working with us hand in hand as we try different approaches across the country to help small communities. So happy to hand it over to Glenn.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sadhu, and thanks everyone. Maybe just briefly on behalf of HICC, really we're excited to see this cohort start and kind of in terms of form and kind of what can come out of this in terms of replicable opportunities across Canada. Maybe just briefly, the roster of experts or the Climate Ready Infrastructure Service is part of a broader climate toolkit for housing and infrastructure that is through HICC. So there are two additional services that I might just prompt for the group here. There is a help desk that is available that's actually staffed by federal government employees. And essentially they're available to respond directly to communities for their questions around housing, around infrastructure projects, and climate considerations. And alongside that help desk, we also have a platform which essentially is an open access website with data sets, climate indicators, and infrastructure information around solution options. So this Climate Ready Infrastructure Service is designed to be that third pillar as part of our climate toolkit. And so we see it as a suite of resources that we're delivering and we're advancing in different ways across the country to really support Canadian communities. So maybe I'll just briefly say both HICC and the team involved in this, as well as the Canadian Urban Institute, are here to help with these challenges. We hear a lot of the stories occurring across Canada, and we are trying to innovate in terms of how that support can be delivered at the local level. So we are happy to share more about that climate toolkit for housing and infrastructure at a later date, if that's of interest, but maybe I'll just leave it at that and pass it over to you, Kira.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn, for that overview. Just going to share my screen and provide you all with a bit of an overview of our service and what this cohort opportunity is going to look like. Yeah, so to get started, this is kind of the agenda for the day. I'm going to talk a bit about this fire department cohort, how it works, what you would receive for participating in this, and what the submission process would look like. And then we're going to have a project showcase from North Rustico PEI. They came through our program outside of a cohort, just in our general intake, and we worked with them on their fire hall. And then we're going to have a Q&A discussion, answer any questions that you might have related to participating in the cohort and related to the Climate Ready Infrastructure Service. So as Glenn was saying, the Climate Ready Infrastructure Service is really one of three services funded by Housing Infrastructure and Communities Canada. And we are the CRIS, or the roster of experts, and we provide the one-to-one expert support. We are administered by the Canadian Urban Institute, which is an organization actually based in Toronto, but we really work coast to coast to coast and work to convene around urban and city and community issues across Canada quite broadly. Specifically with the CRIS, our mission is to increase the capacity of infrastructure decision makers to integrate or include low carbon and climate resilience considerations into infrastructure projects across Canada. And our vision and really mandate is to work with small communities to make sure that they have the technical expertise that they need to do this. So the Climate Ready Infrastructure Service, as I was saying before, connects local governments with populations of around 30,000 or less with climate experts to work with you directly to integrate a climate mitigation or adaptation lens into your public infrastructure project. What it means to participate in our program in general and in this cohort is up to 60 hours of free tailored support. So we pay our roster of experts to work directly with you on your infrastructure project. And then you come out of it with a technical options report that outlines different options that you can integrate into your infrastructure to help you plan and design your infrastructure to be resilient. And we're finding too that it's really a useful tool for many communities when they're thinking about going and acquiring funding. So the BC Fire Department cohort consists of this kind of individual technical support, and then also an opportunity to convene together on different topics related to the infrastructure challenges or the risks that you've identified, and provides an opportunity for co-learning around that. So the Climate Ready Infrastructure Services partnered with the Fire Chiefs Association of BC to provide a 16-week cohort where each of you will come with a project that you'd like to receive some support on, and then participate as a group going through this 4-part webinar series, and with the end goal of making you more ready and having more context to identify funding sources and move your projects towards implementation. So as I was saying, participants receive up to 60 hours of personalized expert support to identify options to upgrade their infrastructure, to make sure that it's more resilient to climate change. And then the opportunity to participate in peer learning sessions with other peers within the cohort, but also with experts who are able to provide support and expertise in that context of co-learning and sharing. And then each community or fire department that participates will receive an options report with really the intention of aligning your project with future funding opportunities. So to be eligible for this cohort, you need to serve a population of approximately 30,000 or less in British Columbia. Either own, operate, or manage fire and emergency services infrastructure. We obviously recognize that there's many different arrangements that fire departments have with different levels of government. And so we're flexible to make sure that we can serve a range of different types of fire departments and their structures. And then we also want to know that the infrastructure project that you're bringing to us is one that you are planning to do. So it might be, depending on what your structure is in a capital plan, it might be something that has been approved by your board, or it might be in an asset management plan. And so the types of projects that are eligible for this cohort, we really wanted to keep it quite broad to be able to kind of meet whatever needs are identified by different fire departments that might participate in our program. But these types of projects on the screen, including like HVAC upgrades for air filtration, identifying wildfire resilient building materials and design recommendations for wildfire resilient infrastructure, looking at mechanical systems, and building envelope improvements for more of like a greenhouse gas emissions reduction or mitigation approach to your project, or looking at the different climate hazards that might impact your infrastructure, and providing options in terms of how you might upgrade your infrastructure to make it more resilient to a range of hazards, or focusing on sprinkler systems, like Sadi was saying, to identify like the feasibility of even choosing to invest in something like that. And then emergency power systems, backup battery systems, and solar systems to increase energy security in the context of kind of uncertain emergency events. We can definitely support other types of infrastructure projects that aren't on this list. So if you have any questions about what other sorts of projects might be eligible, you can put them in the chat, or you can reach out to us after this webinar, or ask a question in the Q&A. So what it looks like to submit to our service is we have a simple online form where we ask just basic information about your fire department, the type of challenge that you're hoping to address, and the type of infrastructure upgrade you're considering. We're hoping to have a bit of a longer run-up period for folks to apply. So it's not just right at the end of the summer. We've put a deadline for September 15th so that we can give you some time to think about what sort of infrastructure project might be a good fit for this cohort outside of the wildfire season. So this is just an example of, and I'm going to go through 3 examples of different projects that we have actually served in our general intake across the country since we launched our program in December. So this is an example of we were working with West Gray, and they were building a new paramedic stations. And so we worked with them to identify the relevant climate hazards that would impact their paramedic stations to ensure that we were providing them with options to integrate as they move forward in their design and construction process to make sure that these facilities were more climate resilient. We also worked with Big Tancook Island, which I think will be brought up in the next presentation today. And this is really about backup energy, energy security for a small island community, and looking at how we can kind of bolster local energy generation and storage so that their community center can be more resilient. And then this is another example, and Stephanie and East Point will speak to this today, of North Rustico. Like I said, we worked with them on identifying different options to upgrade or to consider when they were building their new fire hall, because their existing fire hall was in a flood risk zone. So they were moving their fire hall, and when moving their fire hall, they were looking at identifying different opportunities to increase the resiliency of it. And so that's my presentation for today. I'm going to hand this over now to Stephanie to speak to North Rustico's experience using the Climate Ready Infrastructure Service. And then we'll hand it over to Kirk and his team to talk about East Point's. Awesome.
Thank you very much, Kara. Hi, everyone, and welcome here. I'm not really great at this sort of thing, but I will do what I can. My name is Stephanie Mose, and I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for the town of North Rustico. You've seen a little bit of what we're looking to do. We're looking to build a new fire hall. And I had just met with the HICC earlier today and was talking with them, and about the reasoning of moving our fire hall. It's in a flood zone, and during Hurricane Fiona in 2022, we had over a foot of water that came into the hall, and they had to move the trucks out of the fire hall. And when they did, they closed down the doors. When the waters receded, they went back into the fire hall, and there were fish laying all over the floor. So it's really a big joke in PEI right now about how North Rustico needs a new fire hall because we have fish in our fire hall. So that kind of is a good thing to laugh about now, but at the time it was pretty stressful, and trying to figure out how to move quickly to change the location. And we do have a piece of land, and there were some thoughts about how they wanted to build their fire hall, but we didn't really know where to start. And I received a newsletter from, I think it was the Federation of PEI Municipalities or through Climate Atlantic. And in their newsletter, they had a call for funding applications for the CRIS. And I got really excited because I thought, wow, that's exactly what I need, is an expert to help me figure out how to start. And that's how it was explained. Have an expert help you get climate ready. And I was like, yep, expert, that's exactly what I need. So I applied right away. The application, very simple, straightforward. I put it through probably 5 minutes after the call came out, and I received a message that afternoon saying, we'll get back to you. Everyone was kind of shocked. They said, how did you get into the program so fast? I said, I knew I needed it and wanted those expert help right away. So as I said, we didn't really know where to start. So the first thing I did was had a call with Dan and Matt from CRIS, and they kind of went through all of my issues, all of my plans of what we were looking to do. And part of the issue was that our new fire hall is on a former landfill site. So I needed some information on the engineering and environmental assessments for that. And so we were looking at the different things that I required, and came about a scope of work that included the energy efficiency and cooling and heating systems of the actual build, and how we could reduce greenhouse gases and become close to net zero, or as efficient as possible building. So that was what we decided to focus on through our scope. We had East Point Engineering come in and work alongside and provide us with a technical report that had all of the different options in it. I now have a committee put together where they will review the new report that I received and decide on which option they want to go. But part of the issue is that the fire department knew that they wanted and needed a new fire hall, but no one had really put anything to paper yet except their dreams. So even this report may help change the scope of our actual project, because it gives us a very sound numbers in how much that it's going to cost, and not the whole building, but the options of efficiency and the heating and cooling. We now know how much it's going to cost and what we actually need. So it may change the scope and the size of the actual building, because if we need a little, if we don't need it quite so big, maybe to make it a little more efficient, we could go a little smaller in certain areas, or find ways of utilizing the spaces differently, so that we can bring in the revenue needed for the building. So it was kind of eye-opening. I really appreciate the work from East Point Engineering to show us what the different options were, and to open our eyes to what was really needed and required for the build. So I'm pretty excited for my committee to come together and sit with the report and have a few sobering thoughts of what we need to know and what our best foot forward will be. And that's it. Thank you, Kira.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I really appreciate your reflections. I'll hand it over to Kirk and Ryan now to speak a little bit about the options that they developed for North Rustico.
Okay, thanks, Kira. Thanks, Stephanie, for that. We also really enjoyed working with you on that project. And yeah, Ryan and I are from East Point Engineering. We're just going to chat a little bit today about our experience with CRIS, how we got involved, how we work with clients, and then Ryan's, who was the lead on this project, worked closely with Stephanie, is going to present just kind of how we went through the project for North Rustico. Just want to check that everyone can see my presentation. Give me a quick thumbs up if you can.
I
Nope.
can't see it.
Okay. See it.
I'm going to share. I'm a Teams user, not a Zoom user. How about that? Can you see?
Yep, came better now.
Okay, great. All right. So, as I said, Ryan and I are here with East Point. We are a full service engineering and architecture firm. So we've got all kind of traditional engineering disciplines in-house plus architecture. So we do a wide range of services, everything from civil to structural to kind of the team Ryan and I are on. It's within the mechanical engineering department, but we do what we call energy engineering. So that involves a lot of feasibility and technical work to help clients scope out how they might reduce energy consumption and GHG emissions across their infrastructure portfolio. So we actually got first involved with the Climate Ready Infrastructure Service when it first launched back in early 2025. We heard about it through the HICC's Climate Help Desk, because we've also been engaged by the Climate Help Desk to help them as a climate and infrastructure expert in helping respond to technical inquiries across the country from folks like yourselves. So just briefly want to mention kind of how CRIS helps us help our clients. Some of the things we really like about the Climate Ready Infrastructure Service is that it's very flexible for clients. It really meets folks where they're at. So someone like Stephanie, who has an idea, knows they need a project, but might need some support to scope out what that might look like. CRIS and the folks that work there are very good at meeting clients where they're at and helping them figure out what that looks like. And then engaging experts at the right time to also get their feedback and scoping out the project to make sure what comes out of it is productive. As Stephanie mentioned, CRIS are extremely responsive and very good communicators about expectations, deliverables, and changing scopes. So we really like that, and we think it's really great. Action focused deliverables. We find that the deliverables that are scoped that come out of these projects, like Kira mentioned, like Stephanie mentioned, are intended to bring projects forward and move them to the next step. So we think that's a really great part of this program. We also really like that experts are at the table at the very outset of the project to help scope out kind of what the project will look like and give insight into the direction they feel would be most valuable and use their time most effectively. So we really like the collaborative nature of the program. And as Stephanie just tested to, the project helps, the program helps move projects forward. Just yes, so Kira already mentioned that Cook Island solar and microgrid options analysis that we're also working on through this program. That one, might be of relevance to some of the folks on this call because it's essentially creating a microgrid backup power system for a remote community to reduce the impact of power interruptions. So I'm gonna just chat briefly about kind of how we see CRIS fitting into the capital planning process, then I'll pass it over to Ryan. So like Stephanie said, she was able to identify a need, but could use some support kind of figuring out what that project might look like and what the initial conversations might be. So we found as experts, that's where CRIS really provides a lot of support in helping scope out what that looked like just through dialogue, conversation, and a knowledge of like what technical deliverables can be completed for them. And then those initial conversations, getting information, asking the right questions at the right time, and scoping out the project so that you have, like Stephanie said, something on paper that's a record of all of the decisions that have led you to this point in the project and a path forward with some options that you're free to choose from. When we complete our CRIS projects, we always try to line them up with how can you secure funding for these projects? How can you move it forward? Whether it's through programs like the Green Municipal Fund or federal or provincial programs that supplement or complement programs like that. And then that's kind of, once you secure the funding, obviously now you're getting into pre-construction design, land acquisition, legal works, and then construction and delivery of the solutions. So we feel CRIS is really well poised at a critical point in projects to help get them off the ground. So with that, I'm actually going to pass it over to Ryan, who's going to speak about our experience working on the North Rustico Fire Hall project. Ryan, over to you.
Thanks, Kirk. Yeah, so we'll start here. This is a picture of the North Rustico Municipal Office and the fire hall there on the back, the existing condition. So it's where it all started, and I think we've talked a bit about the background on this one. I know Stephanie alluded to it. There's a picture here of what the fire hall looked like right after the flood. There's still some water in that in the garage. So remember, this happened in 2022, Hurricane Fiona. This is a very prominent memory, and a lot of people. There were a lot of people in PEI. I know a lot of people were without power for quite some time. I think I was a week and a half or something. Much of the island was out, probably 50% for over a week. So it's a bit of a wake up call to here, I would say. I live in Charlottetown. You have to do something about climate resiliency. So it's great that the town is looking at this and looking at options to make this piece of infrastructure more resilient. So following that incident, the town kind of, I guess, set some objectives, and I think Stephanie alluded to it, that something needs to be done. You can't have the fire hall kind of in the flood area, and that map that was in the previous slide kind of showed where the kind of high intensity flood zones are. It is kind of right there where the fire hall currently is. So the town have made the decision that they'll look to relocate their facility from the harbor front to Timber Lane, which is approximately here. And then kind of with their goals in mind would be, to look at that, establish a concept, identify if there's any, funding streams that could be useful, which I think is high level, what their aims were. So based upon that, Kirk, can you go back a slide? Based upon that background, we kind of outlined some high level study objectives. So as Kirk kind of alluded to, we try to bring our service to a point where it really helps clients, leverage particular funding sources. Because that's really, once you get past your pre-feasibility and you have kind of an initial concept in mind, that's usually what you need to do is see, can we get money for this, and what funding partners are out there. So like the Green Municipal Fund is one we were looking at, and that kind of paired up nicely with what we were thinking. In this case, we confirmed the conceptual layout with the town staff, their fire department, and they had a really nice vision for what they were looking for. And as part of the Green Municipal Fund, to access that, there's kind of a net zero readiness component that's useful. So kind of really focused in, kind of from a broad reaching problem of the facility is sitting on a floodplain to a new facility, to having that layout figured out, to in concept, to really narrowing in on just establishing the net zero readiness. And that could kind of be what's really needed to help access future funding on the next steps. I think we can advance ahead now, Kirk. So here's the concept that the town staff had largely put together and shared with us. They had a facility in an adjacent community that they kind of wanted to model their new building after. And then a floor plan here on the right was established to kind of illustrate how they wanted the garage layout and the kind of attached office to be within the building. So once that was established, we were then able to construct a virtual model for it. And that's what you're seeing here. This is done in Carrier HAP. And then with that energy model and in consultation with the town, we knew the building floor plan was fixed. They had a kind of a construction method in mind, in this case, insulated concrete forms, ICF. So that really, again, kind of narrowed us into to a much narrower vision, which is just the mechanical and renewable energy systems, which is something that being an energy mechanical engineering team, we're very very good at looking at. So that really brought the service into a very narrow focus, which I really was quite helpful. Now the next few slides, I'll just kind of go over at a high level. If you want to move ahead, Kirk. They just kind of touch on how we frame the study and some different things we evaluated to kind of establish what the operating cost of this building would be, and what we kind of explored through there, through our analysis to kind of support more of a net zero readiness position. So this would be our baseline model that we developed, which is a very conventional system. You have some gas-fired furnaces, standard AC, gas-fired hot water. Establishing, now I'm saying gas, we're talking about propane, there's no natural gas in PEI. What our baseline energy usage is and baseline expense projections, costs for an HVAC system associated with that. And then advancing along through the subsequent options. Option 2, we're adding effectively the same kind of system, a gas-fired furnace, but instead of cooling only, we attach a heat pump to it, and the utility costs are revised along with the implementation costs. Option 3 is a bit of a departure from this, where we introduce kind of our first true GHG neutral option, unless you're if you're ignoring the biogenic effects, which would be a heat pump with a biomass boiler. So that's where we start. That first item there, that's neutral. Option 4 is just purely a ducted heat pump with electric backups. This is where we're departing from having fossil fuels on site. So there is no propane consumption in this option. Revised projections therein. And option 5, effectively the same thing as option 4. We're introducing photosolar voltaic. So really the PV could be added with any of the options, but we did include that in our as a separate alternative. Finally, a POI. Now, this is a terminology we use in East Point, a point of interest. So it's not a full-fledged alternative that we evaluated. We did provide some economic valuation of a geothermal system. PEI is a really great location for that. We have very permeable aquifer here, so you can access groundwater very easily. So we did look at a heating system that would use geothermal heat. A nice benefit to this, economically, it's more money than our other alternatives. So we knew that it may not have been the most attractive one, but it does have a unique feature that if it's desired to have a rapid fill for fire trucks, and you're going to put in like a high capacity well for that, then the geothermal system just kind of connects off the side of that, which kind of can change the business case somewhat on implementing a geothermal heating system. So that's part of why we included it, is that if that is going to be the case, where they're going to have a high capacity well and a cistern on site and a fire pump or something to fill the fire trucks, and the economics could shift in favor of this. Okay, and the roll up then. So as we kind of completed the analysis and had all the numbers tabulated, we did come out that option 5 is a net zero ready option. So that would be kind of good to pair up with a green municipal fund application if it were going to be put together in the future. Could be leveraged for that. If that wasn't of interest and you just wanted low cost construction and there was no the town was going to fully fund it and not seek alternatives, then option 2 is definitely your lower cost capital cost item. And just as a final note here, if the fire truck filling is something you need to do on site with on-site water sources, then the geothermal option could then have been turned into the item to leverage the funding for the GMF to provide that additional functionality. So I just want to kind of close off here with a bit of a statement, and I have a couple things highlighted in yellow here. Now, I'm a mechanical engineer and I work in an energy team. So, and this is largely an energy project and it's mechanically based. So I'm a bit of a, the man with a hammer seeing every problem as a nail. But I wanted to bring forward that CRIS is not solely an energy assessment funding stream. Like, it's not just looking at energy. It just happened to be that this particular project really paired up nicely with that. That it can be used to get expert opinions on any number of climate resiliency challenges. And energy GHG, I listed that first, but could be water resource availability for fire tankers, or a couple other things I listed there. Shoreline protections, I don't know how relevant that is in BC, but it's a thing here. But just an encouraging, if there's kind of any project that's just kind of loosely on your horizon or problem, it's worthwhile just to bring it forward to your service provider or to the administrators of CRIS, and just have a chat and see if there's something that can be done. And there's likely some part of the project that could be dealt with, like even with the North Rustico example, like a building that's flooding, leading to a new building, leading to the GMF kind of net zero neutrality kind of question and answer is, may not seem like a clear path, but there is definitely a domino effect there that kind of leads there. So yeah, I guess that's my final comment. Is just there's no bad ideas. Bring them forward. I'll turn it back over to you, Kira.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kirk and Ryan, for sharing a bit more kind of from the technical side of things. We'd like to now just open up the chat for any questions. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, you can also put your hand up. And we'd be happy to, talk about eligibility, types of projects, answer any sort of questions that you might have about participation.
Maybe Kira will just reiterate that the program is totally free to participate. We often get the question, does this cost? And the fire department municipal participation is totally free. It's like there's a question on the chat there, Kira.
Yeah, the question is, they have 2 wells on their fire hall property that aren't good. Is that something the CRIS can help with? I definitely do think we could probably talk a little bit about how we might be able to support that project. We have done some kind of hydrological modeling studies before. So for folks who were concerned about drinking water. And so I definitely think that there might be something there that we could support around trying to determine water availability and ways that you might be able to yeah, to secure more water for the future.
Maybe I'll just add and appreciate the presentation regarding North Rustico and the information that East Point brought forward to that conversation of providing a number of options and looking at a bigger picture than what you might potentially have from a local lens. And through the cohort and through this process, getting access to that to experts where it's their field of expertise to provide you with that information and help to think outside the box even further. And certainly that's part of the intent as the cohort is to have that conversation with your peers and see where some things might go or some of the challenges you're facing locally, where through discussion within the cohort you might find where there might be some discussion points where then you can take advantage of the professional services provided within this program.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Yeah, I'm just going to respond to this question in the chat about a feasibility study to replace a 60-year-old fire hall. Yes, that is definitely something that we could work to add some scope to and identify, yeah, just a bit of a pathway forward. Another thing I want to say, just related to that is if you're already working with someone, so we have our cohort that we're doing with the Fire Chiefs Association of BC. But if you have an expert that you are already working with, for example, like if you've already kind of started the process of thinking about your feasibility study and you already have someone you're working with, definitely contact us, submit a project, and we can work with you to support that project, potentially even outside of the cohort, depending on yeah, how far along you are in that project. Yes, so in terms of timeline for the program, this cohort will be running from September until January. And that's just specifically this cohort. So we're doing intake until September 15th. And then after that, the cohort will be formed. In general, for our program runs until 2028. And so we are always accepting submissions from local governments. And just because you might do a project with us, this cohort doesn't mean that you can't do a different CRIS project with us at some other point in time. So if you have something that isn't even fire hall related, I know some folks are on here from a regional district, and maybe there's other things, other sorts of projects that you have too. Yeah, definitely feel free to submit for any sort of infrastructure project in our regular stream. Yeah, we're always looking to support more projects. I speak a bit more to how this program might support strategic investments in
I can jump in on that one, Kira.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Robert put a comment in there just about kind of the scope of things that we could do. And Ryan in his comments was hitting on that at the last slide. But, if you're thinking about a sprinkler system to protect an area, this program could come in and get some engineering support to figure out, okay, where do the sprinklers need to be? How much water do you need to be able to pump? What are the options for how you might protect an entire town center, for instance? Or, and that's something we're looking at in Cortez, or even, we're looking at putting in a fire hydrant system from some tanks that we put in and trying to figure out, well, how big do the pipes need to be and where do the fire hydrants need to be and how much water would you need in the tanks? And so that kind of support could be something that an engineering firm could be brought in to through this program to help look at the options for how to do that properly. So we really, the example in Rustico was a building, but this does not have to be focused around a building. It could be around looking at new technology for fire trucks. What kinds of technologies are coming out if you're looking at equipment procurement, for instance, and what are ways that you can reduce your reliance on diesel in your fleets or in your power generation, or water distribution systems. So we're really, with this cohort in particular, really looking at the range of things. You could be looking at an infrastructure investment that you may have in your community for a new community hall, and you could partner with them to look at fire resilient construction materials and some ways that they could be thinking about fire smart construction standards or guidelines in your community, or some of the things that we've done in other communities. So we can really definitely be broad in thinking about the types of issues you may be dealing with where you need some expert support. And from my own experience on Cortez, we have a lot of expertise in the volunteers, but having an engineer come in and really give us that technical perspective could be a real value add. And we don't have the money for that, and we often don't know who to hire. So having this kind of support to bring in the right expert and have it paid for could be a real value add for the exploration you're undertaking in your community. So let's see, Kira, I saw a couple of the questions come in, so I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, there's another question that I think maybe you might be able to answer. Would wildfire mitigation, structural fire protection on dry hydrants or underground storage tanks to assist with wildfire protection be considered?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
We would, and the cool thing is, it's really helpful to hear those kinds of requests now, because we want to make sure that the experts that we choose in this cohort have that kind of expertise. So, but yeah, that would definitely be an appropriate project.
Yeah. And then there's another one in chat that said, are we limited to looking at one project? For the cohort, we would like you to submit with one project. If you have a few projects that you're considering, we're always happy to have a chat with you about which project might be best for the cohort. But we are also, you can participate in the cohort, but you can also participate as an individual, like general submission into our program. And so if you have multiple projects, yeah, within a fiscal year, you can participate in a cohort and participate a general intake. So
one of the things about the cohort that I just want to add is, we are going to be really looking for cohort participants to share their experiences as well. So with each cohort meeting, we're envisioning having four different webinars. We're going to be tapping the expertise of the cohort participants to share their challenges and some of the programs that they've done. So for instance, hey, how did you get grant funding from UBCM to do that project? And so different in each webinar, we're going to envision highlighting some of the work that the cohort participants are doing, so that there's more of that group sharing, group learning going on.
There's another question in the chat. Would the replacement of a live fire burn facility qualify as an appropriate project? There's been so many new developments in efficiency and fuel types, a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a great project. I don't think we've done one of those before in the program, but that would be great. Yeah.
Robert also had a second part to his question there. Could it support natural infrastructure or fire detection?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. I will say, a lot of federal programs may be more rigid. This is a really great program because we can really be broad in the way that we support communities and the kind of types of expert questions and issues that are being explored. So all of those are really good examples of how climate change is impacting the work that we're doing, and how we can help you to be climate ready. And I just want to reiterate something that Phil and Ryan, others have said, is we really want through this program to help you be ready to get external funding to support your investment. The federal government, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, virtually every funding stream is expecting you to come in with your project having looked at the climate issues. And so we want to know, as you onboard with us, what is the project? What are the funding tools that you might be going for? And then how do we make sure that the final report and the inquiry we do, the work we do together, gets you ready for those funding applications. That's a core part of this program. And so we're going to be, each of the experts will be looking at your program and saying, okay, here's the 3 or 4 funding tools and programs that we might want to apply for, and let's make sure that we give you, to the extent we can, we give you the information that you'll need to do those applications. So funding sources and learning from each other on how you got projects funded, but getting you ready for that funding, is whether it's internal funding from your own organization or funding applications. That's a kind of a core outcome of what we want to do through this program.
Awesome. I'm just sending our cohort page into the chat right now. And on our cohort, oh, Eva just sent it into the chat, which is great. So that's a submission form to join this cohort. And then we will also send a link in the chat for if you have general projects outside of this cohort that you would be interested in getting support on. We will send that link as well. Regardless of whether it's a cohort or a general submission, we like to make the application, or sorry, the submission process quite low barrier. So when you're going through it, we expect it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to complete. And there's a section at the end of the form where you can provide any kind of feedback on the process of filling out the form, because we're always, just looking for ways to better support communities and make sure that our service is as low barrier as it can be. So, yeah. Yes, this presentation is recorded, and we will send it as a follow-up in an email to everyone who attended and everybody who registered. So you will have a copy of this presentation. And yeah, we'll also follow up in our email with kind of overview of the cohort and the submission form as well. So.
And if you're thinking of, oh, sorry, Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge there will be a follow-up or a repeat of this presentation on September 3rd. So if there are other members from your organizations that you'd like to see and hear this in order to be able to better explain it within your own organization, by all means, please have them register for September 3rd. And if you have other questions, again, that you want to bring forward at that point in time, we'd certainly welcome anyone on the call to attend again on the 3rd to add to the conversation.
Yeah, and also to say, if you're not sure whether it's a good fit for you, you've got a project that you're kind of considering, feel free to reach out to any of us, me or Kira or Phil, and we can have a call and just talk through it with you to figure out whether it's a good fit. You know, we're very much happy to coach you through whether this program would be the right program to help you as you're progressing your project. Glenn, at the beginning, talked about the help desk and the ICLEI climate insights tool. There are other ways that, like sitting on a call, that we can help you kind of get the resources. If this isn't the right program for you, the help desk could be a really good resource to just talk through with somebody that has a kind of a broad perspective on other programs, funding tools that the federal government would have. And so, yeah, feel free to reach out to Glenn or Phil, myself, Kira, and we can talk through with you and put you in touch with folks that might have programs that would be appropriate for you.
I just want to say thank you again to everyone who presented today. I just see Stephanie's leaving, so I want to make sure that we're thanking her before she leaves. And we still have a few more minutes if anyone has any other burning questions that they'd like answered.
And by all means, feel free to put up your hand and verbalize it if it's easier. I guess I'd just certainly encourage individuals that have items that they're thinking about. You know, the cohort could be an opportunity to explore that and look at what potential pieces might be out there. I think this is a pretty unique program to provide access to experts in a wide suite of disciplines that you might not otherwise have access to and have to justify the funding to get to the experts. Here you have a piece where it's kind of flipped around and you have access to the experts in order to help you pursue some of your other grant and funding opportunities. Kira, with that, maybe and we'll do one last call for any final questions, thoughts, comments. I hope you found this informative and intriguing in order to draw you in and have further discussions. I think it is a pretty unique program, something that the association was pleased to be able to entertain. It takes a little bit to get your head around exactly what the intent is, but we see that there's value in it, and hopefully this will help you pursue some of the initiatives you're looking at or ideas you've had to improve your halls, your overall facilities. And again, think outside the box and bring the conversation to the table.
Thanks
Awesome.
again, Phil. Really appreciate working with you on this and look forward to connecting with folks in the future. Thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone who attended and all the speakers.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you to all our presenters. That was very informative, and I'm sure the members attending found it informative and got them thinking on what they can do with this now.